All right. Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fire Auctions. Uh, this is a new angle that we're trying for the very first time. So please, we ask you to bear with us while we figure out all of the complexities of this new medium. For the first time, we are broadcasting live the end of our auctions. So for the very first trial run, we're going to do it for our now ending Impressionist and Modern Art auction. This auction has been on for about 2 weeks. That is our standard format. And the idea is that we will allow about 5 minutes between each lot. Each lot is stacked as far as the closing times. So that will give us 5 minutes between each lot to discuss some of the characteristics of the lot and maybe talk a little bit more about the artist in particular and maybe the sale overall. Now, if you would be interested to bid in our sale, I urge you to please go to our website, which is www.fireauctions.com. Over there, you will find a button on the top left corner of the page saying bid. Now it says a black button. So once you click on that, it will take you to our live section of the website that lists all of our current live sales in a way. And once you get to that listing of sales, you will the first thing you will come across is our currently running Impressionist and Modern Art sale. So you only need to click on that and then register to bid. It will ask you for basic information as well as a credit card number, and you will be all set to go. This is our Impressionist and Modern Art sale. It features quite a strong roster of artists from both the Impressionist and Modern Art periods. And this sale especially emphasizes work by modern artists. It's also true that some of these overlap in these periods, like we have Henri Matisse, French Impressionist and then Post-Impressionist artist. So in a way, he is a crossover between the two. He was mostly well known as a draftsman, also printmaker, sculptor, painter. But all in all, he was a fantastic painter, and him together with the Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, they too are considered to be two of the main artists that really took the visual arts forward in the beginning of the 20th century. So they are very important, and some of their works are actually featured in our current sale, which is very exciting, and we'll be talking a lot more about that in a few minutes. So what else? Our sales are organized as time sales, so online only. Oh yes, of course. So we have our team here also on the background, helping me out with commenting and all that. So both on YouTube and Facebook, which are the two channels that we are actually using to stream this live to you, you're able to submit comments. So if you're interested in asking something to me or to the team, I will be more than happy to reply as best as I can. So just so you know, I don't know exactly where this is on the actual console, but it shouldn't be that much of an issue to locate this within the platform. So feel free to send us messages inquiring about specific lots. Maybe as we start going over them one at a time, you think about specific questions to ask me or the team. You can also open it up to the team. So this sale, this is the Impressionist and Modern Art auction. It focuses, as the name suggests, on Impressionist and Modern Art. So Impressionism is actually a movement. It's a type of work, different to Expressionism and Cubism and things like that. And modern art is actually a time period. It's not actually an art movement per se. It actually includes a lot of different art movements that took place during the modern art period of time, which is essentially the first few decades of the 20th century. So abstraction is one of the main things that in a way encompass modern art, because abstract art came about in the 19 teens, going all the way until the 1920s or so. And it came about in different countries pretty much at the same time, all in parallel. So there was the suprematists in Russia, together with futurists in Italy, and you had other people in France and the UK. And so abstraction was happening all at once. And in a way, what was very interesting is that all of these different groups of people in different countries, they all reinforce each other. So they all borrowed from each other and learned from each other and shared ideas. And in a way, it allowed all of these movements on their own and then collectively as a group of abstract artists. It became a global thing, really, because after that it sort of kept on going from there, and then eventually extended to other areas of the planet, extending to the far reaches in Asia and then later in America. Some of the main art movements that we have featured here in our sale as part of the modern art period are Cubism. For that, we have the famous Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, and then we also have surrealists. We have Joan Miró and we have Salvador Dali, both Spanish artists and both true stars of the movement. These were two of the main pushers for this style of painting, mostly painting, even though there were also other mediums involved here, such as printmaking and sculpture and other mediums. So that's pretty much it. There's also Fauvism and post-impressionism, which is also important in this time period. And well, that's in a nutshell pretty much what we have in stock for today. Some of the main artists in our current sale include Max Ernst. We also have Picasso. We have Salvador Dali and Joan Miró, all of the Spaniards. Even though not all from the same movement, but pretty much the same time period. Joan Miró and Salvador Dali were both surrealists, while Pablo Picasso started out as a figurative artist, impressionist, and then he developed Cubism, amongst other things, and then kept on going from there. We also have excellent examples of work by the French-American Marc Chagall. We have work by British artist Henry Moore, celebrated sculptor, printmaker, and painter. We also have work by the French artist Henri Matisse, Jean Arp, Max Ernst, and then there's three other artists that we also have featured in our sale. The first one of them is Maurice Utrillo. The works that we have on display in our sale are actually after Maurice Utrillo. These are prints based on original paintings from the artists, and these are scenes depicting town streets. So his most iconic theme, subject matter. And we also have original work featuring ourselves by Jean Hoverson, as well as Ted DeGracia. But we'll talk more about these artists as the sale moves along. So now we are getting pretty much there to start discussing each lot in particular. So we are scheduled to start closing the lots at 5:20, and as I mentioned before, each lot will be separated from the subsequent lots by about 5 minutes, and that will give us some time to discuss each one. I will also be calling out any new bids entering from our different channels that we have set up, and well, in that way we'll just progress with the sale until the end. So to get this started, we have lot number 1 by Jean Miro, the Spanish surrealist artist. This lot is entitled Roman Numerals. This is a lithograph in colors on wallpaper. The sheet dimensions of this work are 17.5 by 26 inches. This work is signed and dated in Roman numerals on the lower margin. The work is currently unframed. As you can see, pictures of the lot are listed on the website, so you're free to check those for yourself. The work is in good condition. This is the full sheet. It hasn't been trimmed or adjusted in any way. And well, we have a starting bid for this lot at 2,125 with an estimate of 2,500 to 3,500. This work, Roman numerals, belong to an actual series of work, also entitled Roman numerals, that were published in the same year. And it's actually a very good example of the artist's work. This is a signed work and numbered, so that makes it a lot more valuable than the open edition works. This work is actually from the numbered edition of 30, and you actually have the specific edition number on the lower left corner of the sheet. This is done in the signature style of the artist. He leaves a lot of negative space in the background, and then he has his, in a way, signature creatures or structures in black with some highlights in color throughout the work. This is a very good work, and also for the asking price, it's actually a very good option to consider. So now we're gonna leave it to the floor and to the internet. Miro. This time, the title of the work is La Translunaire. from the catalog resonate D659. So we'll just give it a minute there. All right, since we still have a little time before we start the conversation on the following lot, I think it would be a good idea to maybe share some other information about the Spanish artist. So he was a painter, sculptor, and ceramicist born in Barcelona, Spain. A museum dedicated to his work, the Fundación Joan Miró, was established in his native city of Barcelona in 1975. And another, the Fundación Pilar Joan Miró, was established in his adoptive city of Palma de Mallorca, where he actually died in 1983. He was one of the pioneers and main exponents of the surrealist art movement in Spain, but his contributions to the movement are still influencing other artists throughout the whole world. He was also a participant of other movements such as Fauvism, Cubism, and abstract expressionism, among others. He was a very versatile artist, and he took part in a lot of different groups and collaborated with all kinds of collaborate with a lot of other artists, also from Spain, other parts of Europe, and even America. Some of the other artists he was influenced by include Pablo Picasso, André Breton, Hans Arp or Jean Arp, whose works are also featured in our sale tonight. Other people in the list of people who influenced him include André Masson, Hieronymus Bosch, Tristan Tzara, and Modest Urgel. Okay. So now moving on to lot number 2. This lot, as I discussed previously, is also by Joan Miró. This is entitled La Translunar. The catalog resonate reference for this work is D659. This is actually a great work because it's not only a good example of the artist's signature style with his creatures and his very, very bright colors. It's also a great composition as it is. A lot of the work by Joan Miró, and in particular his prints, there are a lot of prints. He was a very prolific printmaker. So that means that there's a lot of volume of work out there in the market. And so especially savvy collectors will discern between the better works and the lesser works. And it's all a matter of composition and also craftsmanship. So there's a certain skill to producing prints, right? So in this case, La Translunar, this is an excellent example of work, hence the slightly higher estimate of $4,000 to $6,000 with a starting bid of $2,400. This is an etching with aqua tinting colors on Archie's watermark Mect. So Mect Paris was, and I believe still is, famous publishing house in Paris, France. They published this work, an etching. Etching is a type of intaglio technique used by printmakers. Other examples of intaglio techniques include aquatint, dry point, linocut, and so and so. One of the main ways to differentiate an etching from other types of prints, especially lithographs and screen prints or even woodblocks, is the depression that the metal plate used to create the image leaves on the substrate or paper in this case. So there is usually a little difference in level between the plate and the margins that stand right outside of the plate. So as long as you have that indentation, usually that means that is an etching, right? So this work, another to continue on the specifics, was published in 1974. The sheet dimensions are 29 by 21 inches. This is an edition of 50, and this impression is from the numbered edition of 50. This is number 47, and this impression is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The condition is excellent. As you can see, the colors are bright and fresh, and the sheet is also the full sheet. It hasn't been trimmed, so the dimension is the original dimension intended. And it's unframed, never been framed, so there are no leftovers from prior hinging or anything like that. There's also no staining or foxing on the margins from having the mat overexposing the sheet. So there's no problem with that. As you can see, I mean, I don't know if we have it on the YouTube, but at least on the Facebook, I can actually see it here on my screen. We have links for all of these slots, so you're more than welcome to go into the site and look at these things for yourself. You can see some of the close-ups that we have for the different works, depicting the edition number as well as the signature on pencil. Some of these signatures, depending on the type of pencil used, will be hard to see, especially from afar, and especially after exposing the picture to light. So if there's flash when the picture is taken, that will usually just cover the image and, well, rendering the signature almost impossible to see. Okay, so now time's up, and we're now ready to move on to the third lot of the set. This work is also by Jean Miro. This is the third from 4 lots that we have featured in our cell tonight. This one is from the series for King Ubu. I believe the complete title for the series is Ubu Roy. So that in a way means King Ubu in French. So it's a series for King Ubu, right? And this impression is called At the Stars number 2. It has an estimate of between $3,000 and $5,000 with a starting bid of $2,500. This work is well, different to the other 2 works that we just discussed. Very bright, right? So this is the full sheet as well, but in this case it's a full bleed image. So full bleed means that the colors or the actual composition extends all the way to the edges of the sheet or the substrate used to create the print. In the other cases, we always had a margin, which is not the case for this composition here. This is a lithograph in colors on Archie's wallpaper. The sheet size is 21 1/3 by 29 1/2 inches. It's an edition of 75, and this impression is unsigned although numbered on the lower margin from the numbered edition of 75, which is still important to note. This work is unframed, never been framed, and the condition is excellent. As you can see, the colors are very bright and fresh, and the work actually looks very beautiful, even on the screen. So imagine how it will look from up close live. It's interesting to see the comparison between this work and the previous two, because even though they all show the creatures that Jean Moreau is most well known for, this one is completely covered in color, right? While the other one is more of a symbolist type of work, more along the lines of Robin Motherwell. So in this one, we're actually paying attention to the full composition because everything is covered in color. Every single inch of the sheet is covered in color, and there's no highlight in this work. The whole piece is supposed to work as a whole, right? Well, in the other case, we had a lot of negative space, which usually automatically tends to draw attention to the main symbol or creature shown on the center of the piece. So it's interesting to see the comparison of work between the two, even though they were all made by the same artist and close to the same time period. They are distinct and unique in their own right. This work was published in 1966, so that's a little earlier to the other works that were published in the 70s. So that also goes to show you how much an artist can evolve, even in a very small period of time, right? All part of the body of work of the artist. So let's see. We're now getting close to the closing of our current lot. Just a few seconds left. 17, 16, 15. Still not too late to place bits, so keep that in mind. And we're almost ready to jump to the very next lot. And that's it. The stars number 2 from the series for King Ubu is now closed. We now move on to our fourth lot of the evening. So this work is also by Jean Moreau. The title is Red and Blue, Rouge et Bleu. It was published in 1960. This is also a lithograph in colors on Arches wallpaper. The condition of this work is excellent. As you can see, the colors are very fresh and bright. There are no condition issues on the sheet. This is the full sheet, which means it hasn't been torn or trimmed in any way. And there are also no damage on the edges of the sheet. This doesn't have a deckled edge. This is a straight edge, and still as the way it was intended. This work was never framed. It's still unframed, so makes for archival storage. The sheet dimensions are 25 4/5 by 18 1/3 inches. This is an edition of 100, and this work is from the numbered edition of 100. It is signed, dated, and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This, as you can see, is also, again, another example of work, and yet very different to the previous 3 lots that we've already gone through, all by Jean Moreau. This work was published in 1960, and our previous lot from the series to the King Ubu was published in 1966. So just 6 years after this work that we see right here. The composition is quite minimal, so that's a little different to the Uberoi work, but along the same lines of the previous two works that we saw at the start of the evening, Roman numerals and La Translunaire. So in a way, Jean Miro is jumping back and forth and repurposing elements from previous work, and you know, using them to his advantage in later works. So that speaks also to the ability of the artist to use these works to the full extent of the medium. Okay, so we're gonna leave it now to the floor and to the internet to see if we get some more interest for this lot. Otherwise, it will be time to start getting ready for Marc Chagall. All right, just a little over a minute ago. And then we're moving straight to Marc Chagall. Just a few more seconds. Very nice. I just for something, cruising my screen for the Facebook channel. I hope that's normal. All right, great, excellent. So our lot is now closed. Time to move on to the next one. All right, so now we can get started with the good old Marc Chagall. Let's see here. All right, excellent. So for this evening, we have four different lots, I believe, 4 or 5 by Marc Chagall. Marc Chagall was a very important artist of his time. He was a Russian-French artist. Here, he was a Russian-French artist of Belarusian Jewish origin. He was an early modernist and to date one of the top artists of the period. He was associated with several major artistic styles and created works in a wide range of artistic formats, including painting, drawings, book illustrations, stained glass, stage sets, ceramic tapestries, and fine art prints. He relocated to New York City in the latter part of his career, and he actually produced a lot of work that was commissioned by the city, private institutions, and other collectors from around the world. So in a way, Marc Chagall, he's a very loved artist for obvious reasons in New York City. So hopefully we have some New York-based collectors here with us, to show some love. And also considering the current situation with isolation, this might be a good idea to spend your late afternoon, just enjoying a little bit of art, and well, you know, getting some hope for the world in the beauty of fine art. So going to the specifics of this artwork here. So this work by Marc Chagall is entitled Lovers with Red Sun. So the image actually shows a couple with Chagall's characteristic goat on the right side of the image, and then they're actually covered by this whirlwind of color and leaves, and also, of course, the red sun. So let's not forget the red sun. It's even included in the title of the piece. So this work was published in 1960. So the same year as the previous lot by Jean Moreau, we already established that they were all contemporaries of each other, because they were all modernists working in parallel, even though they were based in different cities at the time. This is a lithograph in colors. The sheet dimensions are 13 by 19, and this is from the numbered edition of 25. This is impression number 5 out of those 25. And the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. You can actually see the signature on the lower right part of the sheet, and the edition number on the lower left. So you have that there. The condition, as you can see, is excellent. It's currently unframed, never framed, and the sheet is has never been. It's a full sheet, so it's never been trimmed or altered in any way. The estimate for this work is 2 to 3,000, and we currently have a bid of 1,700 for it. Looks like we've had some interest for this work, so we'll now give it a few more seconds for other interested buyers out there to place their bids or register or do any of those things. Okay, just a few more seconds to go. I'm just looking at the comments. Okay, very well. Lot is closed. Next up is another work by our good old Marc Chagall. This time, we're looking at the Green River. Green River was published in 1974, so 14 years later than the work that we just saw, Lovers with Red Sun. This is also a lithograph in colors. Actually, lithography was the favored printing style of Chagall. So it's important to see, and no wonder that so many of the works that we have to show this evening are all made as lithographs. So this is a lithograph in colors. It's the sheet dimensions are 25 1/3 by 16 1/4 inches. This is from the numbered edition of 50. This impression in particular is number 6 from those 50. The impression is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. Just like the previous lot, you can find the signature of the artist on the lower right corner and the edition number on the lower left corner. Just as the previous lot, this work is currently unframed. It's never been framed, and it's in excellent condition with colors fresh and bright. It's a full sheet, and it hasn't been trimmed or altered in any other way. There are also no other condition issues to note in this case. No foxing or creases or bends or tears of any sort. This is actually a very, very nice print. This work in particular tends to do really well. If you care to look at the the auction history for the edition. Green River is one of, it's a very iconic image by the artist. It includes all of the elements that he is most well known for, and the composition itself is very nice. The size also is very good at a little over 25 by 16 inches. The estimate for this work is between 3,000 and 5,000, and we have a current bid of 2,400. So this lot will sell for this amount or more if any other buyers decide to jump in and join the fund. So let's give it a few more minutes. We have 2 more minutes to go until we close this lot. It's actually a very good deal. So I'm very happy for whoever's getting it. And they'll be very happy to get it. Excellent. Very good. Again, if you're just joining us, feel free to send us messages or questions or anything about the specific lots that we're covering, or about the sale overall. You're also welcome to ask me anything, maybe about the process, how to register for future, right? Okay, so we're getting some good feedback from some of our viewers. We're getting some likes, so that's good to know. Also, for the people who are just joining, I would like to repeat this. I already said it at the start of the session. This is our very first live broadcast. We are used to just setting up the sales online, timed format, and we don't really get to interact much with our audiences. But we feel that with everything that's going on in the world now, this is a good opportunity for us to reach out and make it a bit more personal. Now that not that we all, or at least many of us, are forced to stay indoors. So in this way, we can make the experience a lot more enjoyable for all of you and for us, because that's part of the reason why we do it. Okay. So that's it. The work sold. Congratulations for 2,400 plus buyer's premium. And now moving on to the next lot. Also by Marc Chagall. In this case, the title is Biblical Subject. This is also a lithograph. No colors in this case, on arches paper. This was published in 1956. So that makes it so far the oldest work in this selection of work, and in particular by Marc Chagall. It's interesting to see the difference in style and composition, moving in an orderly, timed fashion. This is a lot more symbolic than the other 2 works that we just discussed. There's no color, and honestly, with the very small number of elements that we see in the composition, we're just forced to really stare at the images and really focus on those. So it's different the way the composition is planned with regards to the other 2 works that we just covered. This work is, as we just said, is a lithograph on arches paper. The sheet dimensions are 11 by 14 inches. This is a very small edition of 15. This work is part of that numbered edition of 15. And just like in the other 3 cases, this work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. Again, you can find, if you're able to check our catalog online, you will see the artist signature on the lower right, and then the edition number is on the lower left part of the sheet. This work is unframed. It's also in excellent condition. No condition issues to mention in this case. No trimming, no foxing, no adhesive from previous hinging. No creases, no falls, no tears. So very good all in all. We have an estimate of between 1,000 and 1,500 for this lot, with starting bid of 850. So we're going to leave it now to the floor and the internet to register or place bids. This is actually a very good. It's actually a very good work. The draftsmanship is very good, and also considering there's no color in it, it still manages to pull focus. So that's very good. Okay, we're gonna give it a little more time, so we have 1 minute 20 seconds to go until the next lot. And then for the next lot, we have another work by Marc Chagall. This will be our last lot of the session for the artist. So I'm really looking forward to discussing that one with you. Okay, so just a few more seconds to go. And that's a wrap. Moving on, we have lot number 8 of this session, also by Marc Chagall. This time the title is King David with his lyre. The catalog reference number for this piece is M935, if you want to get really specific. The estimate for this lot is 2,500 to 3,500, with a current bid of 2,125. So we have a winner so far. So depending on how the session goes, this winner stay as is or will be replaced by someone else. So we are now opening it up to the floor and the internet to place bids. This work is a lithograph in colors on wallpaper. It was published in 1979. The sheet dimensions are 22 by 17 and 3/8 of an inch. This is from a numbered edition of 50. This work is from the numbered edition. This is number 13 from those 50. And it's just like in the other 3 cases. It's signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The work is currently unframed, in excellent condition. With no condition issues to note. You're also more than welcome to check the catalog for the work and see additional images where you can see close-ups of details and verify condition of the work. Okay, so we have a little time still to go. Let's see. Oh, someone just placed a bid. So now the current bid is 2,200. Thank you very much for that. So I think there's still some more interest in this work. So let's just give it a little more time. All right. So if you're looking at our actual bidding platform, you will have noticed that the counter for this specific lot just jumped. Right. So every time that happens, once you get into the last few minutes of the sale for that specific lot, you get an increment of the original time difference between lots, which in this case is 5 minutes. So 5 minutes were just added to the counter for this specific lot. So now we have a little. Okay, so we're now moving on to the next lot. We're now done with Mark Chagall. Thank you very much. Whoever placed that other bid, and to the other buyer who is now under. Also, thank you very much for your patronage. We're now moving on to lot number 9 by Maurice Utrillo. Okay, now this is a little different and special in a way. So this is a set of 2 works, 2 prints by Maurice Utrillo. These works were actually produced not by Maurice Utrillo but by Ernest Christian Rust. These are images based on original paintings by Maurice Utrillo. These are lithographs in color on wallpaper. The dimension of each is 25 inches by 19, and they were published in circa 1964. The condition is very good, and as you can see in the pictures provided, they are currently framed. And they're also signed in plate. You can see the signature of the original artist, Maurice Utrillo, on the lower margin of the piece, still exposed, not under the frame. And there is also a date on the lower left part of the work. So very good works all in all. These are actually signature works by Maurice Utrillo. He was most well known for depicting town streets of his own town and other towns where he worked and lived during different parts of his life. So his style is very figurative. very realistic, and well, these works are very good, and especially for the estimate of between 700 and 900 with a starting bid of 600, they are actually quite appealing. So we now have a little more time to go on this. We have a little over 2 minutes. Let's see how we're doing. That was previous Chagall. Chagall, King David with his lyre, still at 2,200. So to anyone interested, please feel free to jump in. Still below the lower estimate of 2,500. So a very good deal, especially for the type of work and condition this specific impression is in. So don't lose the opportunity. Okay. Back to Trello. We have a little more left for the Trello. Just a little over 40 seconds to go. Again, if you're just joining us, so we're now covering live the end of our timed online auction for Impressionist and Modern Art. You can access the full catalog of the sale by visiting www.fireauctions.com, and there just go to the to the top left part of the site. You will find a black button with the title of Bid Now. That will take you to the live section of the website that lists all of our currently ongoing sales, and you will be able to join the sale room and register to bid right there and then. Okay, so now moving on to lot number 10. This lot is by seminal Spanish artist Pablo Picasso, one of the main exponents of Cubism and also other types of movements. I mean, he also collaborated with a number of other artists in his native Spain, and then after moving to Paris, he also collaborated with a lot of artists from the School of Paris, and then, thanks to some of his different dealers, Ken Weiler and others, his work was eventually taken to America, where he was also able to influence future generations of artists. Pablo Picasso is perhaps most well known for being one of the main developers of the Cubist style, but his body of work is a lot more complex and rich than that. I mean, it evolves so much from decade to decade, and the styles and the compositions evolves and change in many different ways. So now we're looking at a work that was published in 1968. So this is a pretty early work. This is an aquatint on wolf paper. Aquatint, again, is a type of intaglio technique. Other examples of intaglio techniques are etching, linocut, dry point. These are all techniques that rely on covering into a metal plate that is then pressed against the substrate, in this case paper, to create the image. And there is a depression usually left from where the plate was pressed against the paper, which is oftentimes the one distinguishing characteristic of these prints, and that's how you're able to tell what is what. The sheet size of this print is 6 2/5 of an inch by 8 9/10 of an inch. This is a numbered edition of 50. This work is from the numbered edition, and it is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. You can see right there on the work, you will find the artist's signature on the lower right and the edition number on the lower left part of the work. This work is in good condition. It is currently unframed, and well, there is one condition issue that you should be aware of. So the sheet has been reduced on all sides, so this is not the original sheet size. But other than that, the condition is still superb, especially for a work this old. And it's also a very good example of Picasso's body of work. This work has an estimate of between 8 and 10,000 with a starting bid of 6,000. Another interesting thing about the work by Picasso in general is that he didn't really sign that many of his works. A lot of his works remained unsigned, and that's part of the reason why they are hard to authenticate, because Picasso, while he was still alive, never paid too much attention to that. In this case, we can see some markings in the actual plate that I believe are reference to the date when this was made. But other than that, that's pretty much all of the markings that we get from Picasso on average. Okay, we have a few more seconds to go on this one. Right, and we're now moving on to Lot 11 by Henry Moore. Henry Moore, British modern artist. This work in particular is entitled Curved Reclining Figure in Landscape number 2. It was published in 1979. This is an etching and dry point on wallpaper. Again, etching and dry point, both examples of intaglio techniques in printmaking. The sheet dimensions are 14 3/5 by 18.5 inches. This is an edition of 50, and this work is from the numbered edition of 50. It is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The work is currently unframed and in very good condition, as you can see in the pictures listed in the catalog on our website. We already have some interest for this lot. We have an estimate of 2,500 to 30,000 to 3,000, sorry, with a current bid of 2,600. So this lot will sell. We'll just give it a little more time to see if we have more buyers joining the fund. A few more interesting facts about the artist. So Henry Moore was a British artist, and he was mostly well known for his bronze sculptures, large bronze sculptures, mostly intended to be displayed outdoors. He is today one of the most representative artists of his time for British art, that is. And well, his signature style involved creating this blobby types of human figures. So we actually see one represented here in this print work. So this is the curved reclining figure in landscape. Most of his sculpture looked like this. So it had a very fluid look to it. Very yeah, very for lack of words, blobby. So lots of curves, no straight edges, no straight lines. Very smooth overall curves all around. In a way, this reminds me of work by Gene Arp. Also lots of curves, and also a contemporary of his, same time period. Another interesting story about this artist in particular that I heard from one of the curators of Tate Modern in London is that at the time, the then chief curator at Tate Britain in London, he was completely against the work and aesthetic of Henry Moore, and he swore that he would never allow the work of Henry Moore to become part of the permanent collection of the museum while he was still living. So what happened is that the curator eventually passed away, and well, nowadays the museum has a lot of work on display by Henry Moore because in spite of the efforts of the curator, well, the work was too good to be left outside of the collection. So that was that. They yeah. We have a few more seconds to go. Just 20 more seconds to go on this. Let's see if we have a little more interest for this. Still, as it stands, the lot will sell for 2,600. And that's sold for $2,600. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to lot number 12. This is also an example of work by Henry Moore. The title of this work is Female Torso and Sculpture Ideas number 1. This edition was published in 1979. It's a lithograph in colors on wove paper. The work is printed in different gradients of gray, ranging from lighter to darker. And it shows a collection of female torsos and sculptures. Again, we just discussed that this artist is most well known for his sculpture work, and this is a very good example of that. The sheet dimensions of this work are 19 3/5 by 24 2/5 inches. This is an edition of 25, and this impression in particular is a printer's proof. So it's inscribed PP for printer's proof. It's a proof aside from the numbered edition. Printer proofs, just like artist proofs and HCs, are just like the numbered edition. So they're in a way additional copies of the finished run of the edition. They do differ from TPs, trial proofs, which are usually pulled during the printing process and usually don't show the finished image. So they are made at intermediary stages of the printing process. Depending on the image and the artist, these trial proofs can be worth significantly more than the work from the standard edition. This work in particular is unsigned, although it is numbered, actually inscribed PP from the from the uh, from the edition of printed proofs, aside from the standard edition. The work is unframed, and it's in excellent condition with no condition issues to note. The work has never been framed, so there is no residual adhesive from prior hinging or any foxing from matting in the past. This is the full sheet. It has not been reduced in any way or tampered, so it's still as was intended originally. We have an estimate of $1,500 to $2,000 with a starting bid of $1,000. We're now going to open it up to the floor on the internet to see if any other buyers want to join in and join the fun. Okay, I am now starting to catch up with messages from our YouTube channel. We have very passionate collectors I see here joining us in this session. So some people here are asking me about Blobby. So Blobby, I think it might not be a technical word, but I think it suffices to describe the aesthetic that the artist was going for. So very fluid, lots of curves, very smooth texture to it. That is the signature mark of Henry Moore as a sculptor, which was then translated to other forms of work. Okay, some people are telling me here that they like curves. So, well, sir or lady, this might be just what you need. These works actually feature lots and lots of curves. And so, very good. That's a wrap. We're now moving on to the next lot, number 13. This lot here is by French artist Henri Matisse, entitled Face of a Young Woman with a Twisted Necklace. This work was published in 1946. It's an etching on vellum paper. Etching, again, is a type of intaglio technique. The sheet dimensions are 14 and 9/10 by 11 inches. This is an edition of 25. And the work is stamp signed and numbered on the lower margin of the sheet. The condition is very good, and the work is currently unframed, never framed. This is the full sheet. It hasn't been tampered or reduced in any way, so it's still as originally intended. A little information on Henri Matisse. So just like a lot of the other artists that we've already covered in this session, Matisse collaborated and became involved in a number of movements of his time. So he did some work in Fauvism, and also crossed over from Impressionism to Expressionism, and also participated in abstract Expressionism. Even though he's most well known for his painting and draftsmanship, he was also a very prolific printmaker. It's also important to note that towards the latter days of his life and career, he became a lot more interested in very colorful patterns. So since he was already ill and he was restricted as far as being able to produce some kinds of works, he became actually very interested in creating specific types of work. So pattern-like, very, very bright, very colorful, and very well defined. This example of work, face of a young woman with a twisted necklace, it's a very good example of the artist's aesthetic. So this shows you the very elegant line that the artist was most well known for. Both him and Pablo Picasso were two of the artists that are still considered to have advanced in a very large way the visual arts in the first few decades of the 20th century. So any works by these artists are not only excellent examples of right. So I'm getting I'm getting comments now from our YouTube followers saying that they were rivals. But yeah, rivals is just another way for saying friends. They were both prolific in their own rights. And I believe this is a very clear example of the skill of Matisse as far as drawing went. Very clean lines, very succinct, very minimal in a way, and a very, very well-defined style. So we have just a little over a minute to go on this lot. Let's see if we can open it up to the floor or to the internet. Very good work. Just a few more seconds to go. And that's closed. It's a pass. Now moving on to the next lot, this time by a Spanish artist, Salvador Dali, surrealist artist. The title of this work is The Amorous Sleep from the Earthly Paradise series. This work was published in 1974. It's a dry point in colors on Lana wolf paper. Dry point, again, is a type of intaglio printing technique. The sheet dimensions are 22 by 17.5 inches. This is from a fairly large edition of 225. This work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. The work is currently framed. It's never been framed, and it's in excellent condition with colors fresh and bright. This is the full sheet. It hasn't been trimmed or reduced or tampered in any way, so it's just as originally intended. Again, Salvador Dali, he was one of the top names of the surrealist movement worldwide. He was also a contemporary of Jean Miro, but different. Salvador Dali, he was a very prolific drawer, and a lot of his works are characterized by a masterly display of drawing, almost lifelike. So Salvador Dali was a prolific drawer, draftsman, and well, he's not. This is actually a very good example of that. Again, just like Henri Matisse, his drawings are characterized by clean lines, very elegant, not too much on the page. which speaks to the mastery of the element, in a way, of the medium. So we have an estimate of 2,000 to 2,500 for this lot. We have a current bid at 1,700. Let's see if we get some more interest for the work. We have a little more to go, just under 2 minutes. Okay, just a few more seconds to go on the DALL-E. And that's it. Solved for 1,700. Thank you very much. Now moving on to the next lot, number 15, by Jean or Hans Arp. This work is untitled, from Le Soleil Recercle series. He has an estimate of between 4,000 and 6,000 with a starting bid of 3,000. This was published between 1962 and 1965. It is a woodcut in colors on cream handmade Berlin Daubonnier paper. Woodcut is not an intaglio technique. It's not an intaglio printing technique. Woodcut is its own category, which usually entails carving into a wood-based plate and then pressing it against the substrate, which in this case is paper. The sheet dimensions are 21 and 7/10 by 17 and 1/5 of an inch. This is a numbered edition of 60, and the work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This work is unframed, and it is in very good condition with colors fresh and bright. There are no condition issues to note on this lot. The sheet is the full sheet. It hasn't been trimmed or altered or reduced in any way, so it is as originally intended. Very good example of work by Jean Arp. Now that we have a little more time on this one, we can talk a little bit more about the artist. So Jean Arp, Hans Arp was better known as Jean Arp in English. He was a German-French sculptor, painter, and poet, and worked in other media such as torn and pasted paper. He was known as Dadaist and avant-gardist. He was a very recognized artist. He he became involved for a big part of his career with surrealism, but then eventually moved from that into abstraction creation, working with the Paris-based group Abstraction Creation and a newspaper publication called Transition. Okay, so now we have a little over a minute to go on this one. And we're now getting close to the end of our session for today. Five more lots to go. We now have a little over 1 minute to go on this lot. So now we're going to open it up to the floor and the internet in case anyone else wants to join the fun. And a few more seconds to go. This is actually a very good example of work by the artist, as his body of work is characterized by irregular and very organic shapes. This work also in particular features very bright and vivid colors, also a signature characteristic of the artist's work. So all in all, very good composition. And that's a pass. Moving on to lot 16, also by Jean Arp, also from the series Le Soleil Recerclé. This is an untitled piece, abstract, true to the signature style of the artist. This work, just like the previous, was published between 1962 and 1965. It is a woodcut in colors on cream handmade Velin d'Auvergne paper. The sheet dimensions of this work are 21 7/10 by 17 1/5 inches. This impression belongs to a numbered edition of 60. The work is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This work is currently unframed, and it's in very good condition with colors fresh and bright, as shown. The sheet, being the full sheet, with no condition issues to note. All in all, a very good example of work by the artist. The composition shows abstract shapes in bright colors. Very characteristic of the artist's signature style of work. We're now going to open it up to the floor on the internet to see if there's any more interest. This work carries an estimate of between 4,000 and 6,000 with a starting bid of 3,000. very conservatively priced. Okay, just a little over 2 minutes to go. Now a little less than 2 minutes ago. Next up, lot 17. We have work entitled Composition Number 4 from the Birds in Peril series by Max Ernst. And so we have a few more seconds to go on this lot, and that will be it for GNR for the session. And that's a wrap. Thank you very much. Moving on to lot number 17. This time we have Max Ernst. This work is entitled Composition Number 4 from the Birds in Peril series, published in 1975. This is an etching in colors with collage on artist wove paper. The sheet dimensions of this work are 21.5 by 16.5 inches. This is a numbered edition of 100. It is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin of the sheet. This work is unframed, never been framed, and it's in excellent condition with colors fresh and bright. The sheet is a full sheet, untrimmed, not reduced. There are no condition issues to note in this case. All in all, a very good work for any collection. We have an estimate of between 5,000 and 7,000 for this work, with a starting bid of 3,500. Max Ernst was a very prolific artist. He was one of the primary developers of the Dada and Surrealism movements. A little background on the Dada movement, or Dadaism, as was also known in Europe. This movement came about in Europe. It was part of the European avant-garde in the early 20th century, and it was centered in Zurich, Switzerland, at the Cabaret Voltaire, circa 1916. The movement was developed in reaction to World War I, and consisted of artists who rejected the logic, reason, and aestheticism of modern capitalist society instead expressing nonsense, irrationality, and anti-bourgeois protest in their works. The art of the movement spanned visual, literary, and sound media, including collage, sound poetry, cut-up writing, and sculpture. The artists that were part of this movement, such as Max Ernst, expressed their discontent with violence, war, and nationalism, and maintained political affinities with the radical far left. We now have a little more time to go on this work. This work is actually a very good example of Max Ernst's work and of surrealism in particular. So we have the disfigured version of a bird portrayed in the composition, and then if you pay attention to the image, on the top left corner of the work there is a circle that includes what appear to be guns or other types of tools. So this, in a sense, is one of those works as described by the Dada movement against a lot of what was going on at the time: war, nationalism, extreme patriotism, etc. Okay, so we now have a little under a minute to go. If you're just joining us this evening, please know that we're now covering a live broadcast of our Impressionist and Modern Art auction. We've now covered almost 17 of the 20 lots featured in our sale, focused on Impressionist and Modern art. Some of the artists covered in this sale include Max Ernst, as the one we're currently covering. But in addition to him, we have Jean Arp, we have Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, Marc Chagall, Jean Miro, etc. Okay, so that's a pass. Now moving on to lot number 18, also by Max Ernst. This work is entitled The Caramel Bird, Le Oiseau Caramel. This work was published in 1969. It is a set of 3 lithographs in colors with embossing on Archie's paper. Each sheet is size 15.5 inches by 11 and 2/5 inches. They are from an edition of 150, numbered, and each is signed and numbered in pencil on the lower margin. This set of 3 works is currently unframed, never framed, and in excellent condition with colors fresh and bright. All 3 works are the full sheet, not reduced or tampered with in any way. So as originally intended. This is also a very good example of work by Max Ernst, and by extension of the Surrealist and Dada movements that he represented and for which he was one of the main exponents. Dadaism, as we just covered for the previous lot by the same artist, was a movement that came about in Europe, centered originally around Zurich in Switzerland, and was focused on breaking convention, and in particular moving away from some of the main subjects that were going on in Italy at that time, in particular war and nationalism and extreme patriotism. Also to note is that many of the artists that were part of this movement, they were they have their own political affinities, for the most part, towards the extreme far left. Okay, so we have now a little over 2 minutes on the clock for this slot, so we're now going to open it up. To the floor and the internet. To see if there's any more interest. For this work in particular, we have an estimate of between 5,000 and 7,000 with a starting bid of 4,000. So let's see if we can do any better on it. For those people just joining us, please note that this is lot number 18 from a total of 20 that we'll be covering in this evening session of our Impressionist and Modern Art online auction. This is a brand new approach that we're trying for the very first time. This is a live broadcast of the end of our sale that will include live commentary on the different lots right before they close. So in that way, trying to add a little more to the experience of the auction overall, and also contribute to your understanding of the work. Also, feel free to shoot us messages or any questions you may have about the sale overall, or about the specific lots that we're discussing, or about how to register. You can also ask us about that. Maybe for next time, we will work on this format and develop it as we move along. So we think this will add another layer to our whole online auction experience. Very well. So that is a pass, and we now move to lot 19 of 20. So we're getting there. Lot 19 is by Jean Halverson, untitled. This is a watercolor on paper. This is one of 2 original works that we have featured in this session's catalog of work. The size of the artwork is 23 by 29 inches. And it is signed on the lower margin. This is actually a very good example of the artist's work. The work shows a bouquet of flowers, natural flowers. And the execution is very beautiful. Watercolor on paper, just as expected. We have a very conservative estimate for this work, between 16 and 1700, with a starting bid of 500. So we open it up now to the floor and to the internet to place any bids. It's also important to point out that the work is currently framed and is again in excellent condition. Okay, so now we have a little under 3 minutes on the clock for this lot, and then we'll be moving on to our final lot for the session. We Well, we thank you very much to everyone who joined us tonight during this session, this experimental session in a way. So for those of you who are joining us just now, please note that this is the first time that we try this approach, live broadcast of the end of our timed online-only auctions. We feel this will add a lot moving forward to our sales, and this is a format that we will work to improve as we move on. At the moment, we are streaming live on both Facebook and YouTube. Both of them have chatting capabilities, so please feel free to send us any messages relating to the sale, about the sale overall, specific lots that we're discussing at any one time, or just the process as it is. Feel free to send us any queries that you may have. We're here to help and to try and respond to your questions as best as we can. And now we have just a little under 1 minute to go. On this beautiful work. Next up is Ted DeGracia's The Family. Just a few more seconds on this lot. And that's a pass. And now for the final lot of the evening, we have Ted DeGracia's The Family. This is one of two original works, or more accurately said, two unique works in the session. This is an oil on canvas work with dimensions 21 by 36 inches. The work is currently framed and it's in excellent condition. And it is signed in oil on the lower right corner of the composition. The work has an estimate of 1,700 to 2,300 with a starting bid of 1,200. So we invite you to join and place bids. All right, so we have a few more minutes now on the clock. To all of you just joining us, please note that this is Fly Auction's inaugural live broadcast of our Impressionist and Modern Art sale. This is the first time that we're trying this format live, because we feel it adds a layer to the auction experience that we cannot provide with our standard timed sales. As we move on and we learn, we will improve on the format and be able to give even better experiences to our clientele. So we hope that you will join future broadcasts. Our next sale scheduled for later this month will be photography. So please stay tuned, register, and well, just stay tuned for another incredible sale featuring exemplary works by some of the top photographers of the last century. Now just a little over 2 minutes to go. Again, for all of you just joining us, this is the final lot of the session. Lot number 20 by Ted DeGracia, entitled The Family. This is an oil on canvas with dimensions 21 by 36 inches. The work is currently framed and in excellent condition as shown. "30 seconds to go on the clock. "10 seconds to go. And that's a pass. Well, on behalf of Fly Auctions, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening in our inaugural session of the live broadcast format for our Impressionist and Modern Art sale. We hope to see you in the future. And well, for now, have a good evening, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.